Hi everyone and welcome to part 3 in this series, Learning to Code HTML for Beginners. Now in the last video we spoke about the head tag and metadata in our HTML file. In this video we're going to talk about text and how to use text in HTML. So if you think of any of your favourite websites, whether it's a news website, a blog, social media or even YouTube, text is everywhere. There's headings and paragraphs, titles, descriptions, menus and so on and so forth. Text is one of the most important components of any website. Now, before we actually start writing text for the end user, one thing I want to touch on very quickly is comments. Okay, now comments are notes that we can leave that don't affect the code itself, but they can be handy to look back on and read. If you're looking back on code that you wrote previously, you can see what that particular piece of code does. Okay, now in HTML, the way we write a comment is pointy bracket, exclamation mark, dash dash, and then we write our comment and then dash dash, pointy bracket at the end. Right, so this is a comment. We'll hit save on that, and what we'll see is if we go back to our code and hit refresh, that doesn't show up. One important thing to note though is users actually can search, inspect, and look at the elements and actually see your comment in the source code. So make sure you're not leaving anything in the comment that you don't want the user to see. Okay, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to close this down. Actually, we're going to shrink this and we'll shrink this, and that's just going to make it easier for us to see what we're doing. I'm also going to just zoom in here a little bit as well. Appearance, zoom in, and that should make it a bit easier to see what we're doing. Okay, so now that we've spoken about comments, what we're going to do first of all is to look at headings. All right, so we touched on this paragraph in the previous video. Okay, and what we're going to talk about now is headings. So we'll delete this for the moment. And the way to do a large heading, or the largest heading that we can do in HTML, is to use a H1 tag. Now, obviously, as we talk in the future about CSS, we can obviously increase the size of our headings. We can leave a custom font size. But for the moment, just using HTML, the largest text size we have is a H1. So this is a heading. And if we save that now and look over here, we can see how big that is. Now, we can do smaller headings all the way down to a H6. So if we copy and paste this out, okay, and what we'll do is H2, just clicking Command D here, H3, and that'll change both tags. Command D, H4, Command D, H5, and lastly H6. Save that. And this is our H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we can see the way the text is getting smaller and smaller as we go down. Another important thing that we need to talk about is white space in HTML. And what I mean by that is HTML has what's known as white space collapsing, meaning that it doesn't recognize spaces or line drops in the traditional sense. So if we add a bunch of spaces here, hit save, and then refresh the page, you're not going to see them spaces. All right. Also, if we were to drop a line, that also isn't recognized. Okay, so how do we get around this? Now, typically, when we're writing a website, we'll use CSS to do a lot of the positioning of elements for us, okay? But in this situation, there are a couple of things that we can do. So the first thing we can do is we can add a break line tag. So it's BR, hit save, and we'll see that'll drop a line, okay? Now, maybe we want a couple of these here, hit save, and we can see that there, okay? What we can also do is, let's say under this, we want to separate this from the rest of the text, okay? And we can put in a horizontal row here. So HR tag, hit save, and now when we refresh, we have this line across. Okay, so now we'll tidy this up a little bit and structure the page a little bit better. So we'll delete all of this and we'll say my profile. Okay, delete that. Okay, so now what we'll do here is we'll use this HR tag, which which will give us that line. We lost an E somehow. Okay. Which will give us that line. And now we'll use our, let's say, H3, and we'll say my music. Okay. So here we're going to write our favorite bands. Now we'll do a break line, and then we'll say p tag is the Dubliners. Alright. And we'll add a few more. We'll say red hot chili peppers and whatever, Spice Girls, whatever it is. And now when we hit refresh, you can see that looks a lot tidier. Okay, actually might take that out of there. Okay, that looks a bit better. Okay, and we can go on and on and on, and we can whatever other information we want there. All right. Now, what we're going to talk about now is blocked elements and inline elements. So we'll delete all of this. We'll come back up here, refresh this, and what I want to do is we'll actually get rid of this as well, and we'll say this is a sentence. Okay. Now this is another sentence. Okay. So refresh. Now let's say we want to put both of these elements, this p tag here, we want the two of them on the same line. So we hit save, but nothing happens. Even though they're on the same line, they're both shown up separately in our code. Okay, now hold that thought for a minute. Let's do the same with our header. Okay, so we'll put our h1 tag here, and this is our heading. Save that. Again, we'll start off like this, put them on separate lines, hit refresh. So now they're separate, and now if we want to put the two of them on the same line, we'll copy this and paste it here. And again, it stays here. Now, the reason for that is these tags are known as block elements, okay? And what that means is that they take up, like a block, they take up the full width of the screen, okay? So each block element takes up 100% width of the screen. So even though there's no actual text past this line, this text element, this h1 tag, is taking the full width of the screen, which means that there's no space for a p tag here as well. That has to go below. Same if we try to add another p tag here. Hit save, enter, and again it automatically just drops down a line, because again this p tag is a block element. Now we can make changes to this using CSS, but for the moment we're going to talk about the opposite to block elements, which are what is known as inline elements. Okay, so let's say we wanted to make this sentence here, we wanted to make this bold. Okay, so what we'd actually do is we can add an inline bold element. Now what this should do is this should put the word sentence in bold, but it shouldn't need to drop a line. Okay, so if we save that, okay, now what we'll do is we'll actually search we won't. We will take some more of this, right, and we'll put in just some random text, doesn't matter what it is. Hit save that, whatever it is. Let's also take this part here and we'll put this inside of italics. Again, we should be able to see all of this line all on the one line. The italics shouldn't need to drop a line. So, and now that's in italics. Okay, so that's the difference between blocked elements and inline elements. Now, as I said, we can make changes to this later on using CSS. But it's important just for the moment to know that we have both blocked elements and inline elements, and we'll talk a little bit more later on about which elements are blocked and which elements are inline. Okay, so to summarize everything that we've just covered in this video, so to use text, we can write our text inside of a p tag. Alright, to put in headings, we can use a h1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 tag depending on the size that we want, and then we use our p tag with that. Now once we start using CSS, we can obviously give our text custom styling, custom sizing, but for the moment, if we're strictly using HTML, there are options regarding text. Now all of our heading tags, h1 through to h6, and also our p tag are what's known as blocked elements, meaning that we can't have multiple elements on the one line. Every time we use a blocked element, it'll automatically drop down to the next line to actually fit. Okay, we also have inline elements, which are elements that can be used on the same line as other elements, and they include our bold tag and our italics tag, and we'll talk about more of them in later videos. Lastly, we covered white space, and when we're writing code, the white space isn't recognized in HTML. Okay, so that spaces and line drops unless we use an actual tag to do that. Okay, so like the break line tag that we talked about, or the horizontal row tag that we talked about, so the BR or the HR tag. So look, that's everything for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk more about text, and in particular lists and different list types. If you could, before you move on to the next video, again, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, it helps me out massively. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Thanks.